Once upon a time, in the flourishing kingdom of Umudike, a beautiful princess named Ngozi was born to King Obina and Queen Amara. From the moment she took her first breath, she was cherished and adored by her family and the entire kingdom. With her radiant smile and sparkling eyes, she was the epitome of grace and beauty. When Ngozi turned 5, a peculiar and distressing condition was discovered. She had a persistent and strong mouth odor. Despite the best efforts of healers and herbalists from across the kingdom, no remedy could alleviate it. As the news spread, the other children began to avoid her, and even the adults whispered behind closed doors. The once vibrant and lively palace became a place of solitude for young Ngozi. Feeling the sting of isolation, Ngozi spent most of her days in her room, far from the prying eyes and hurtful comments of others. Her only companions were her imagination and her thoughts. To escape the loneliness, she turned to her one true solace, singing. From a young age, her voice had been a beacon of hope and joy, a talent so pure that it seemed to come from the heavens themselves. Each evening, as the sun set and the palace grew quiet, Ngozi would sit by her window and sing. Her voice, soft yet powerful, would float out into the night, carrying with it the sadness and longing of her heart. Her melodies told stories of love, hope, and dreams, painting vivid pictures of worlds far beyond her confined space. Unbeknownst to her, the people of Umudike began to gather outside the palace walls to listen to her sing. They were captivated by the beauty and emotion in her voice, even though they did not know it belonged to the princess. The songs brought comfort to the weary, hope to the disheartened, and joy to those in need of it. Her voice became a cherished part of their lives, a secret treasure they held dear. One day, a traveling minstrel named Chidi arrived in Umudike. He had heard tales of the enchanting voice that graced the kingdom each night and was determined to discover its source. After days of searching, he found himself beneath the palace window just as Ngozi began to sing. Mesmerized, he listened, realizing that this voice held a depth of emotion and beauty he had never encountered before. Chidi sought an audience with King Obina and Queen Amara, requesting permission to meet the mysterious singer. Reluctantly, they agreed, and Chidi was led to Ngozi's chamber. There, he found the princess, her face marked by both beauty and sadness. As she sang for him, Chidi felt tears well up in his eyes, for he understood the pain behind her melodies. Moved by her plight, Chidi proposed an idea to the king and queen. He suggested that Ngozi could perform from behind a delicate screen, allowing her to share her gift with the world without revealing her identity. The royal couple, desperate to see their daughter happy, agreed. That evening, a grand stage was set up in the palace courtyard, adorned with flowers and silken drapes. Behind the screen, Ngozi began to sing. Her voice soared through the air, filling the hearts of all who listened with a profound sense of wonder and joy. The people of Umudike were enchanted, and they applauded with fervor, unaware that their beloved singer was the very princess they had once shunned. As the performances continued, Ngozi's confidence grew. She realized that her gift was stronger than her affliction, and she began to feel a sense of belonging she had never known before. Though she remained behind the screen, her songs reached out to the hearts of her people, bridging the gap that had once kept her isolated. That evening, after her performance behind the screen, Princess Ngozi felt a newfound sense of confidence and joy. The applause and cheers from the audience had warmed her heart, and she realized that she had touched the hearts of her people. Encouraged by the warmth and acceptance she felt through their applause, she decided it was time to reveal herself and greet her people personally. As the last notes of her song lingered in the air, Ngozi stepped out from behind the screen. The audience, curious and excited, leaned forward to catch a glimpse of the mysterious singer. She stood before them, her heart pounding with both excitement and fear. "Thank you, dear people of Umudike," she began, her voice trembling slightly but carrying the same melodic beauty. "I am Princess Ngozi, and it is my honor to share my songs with you." Just then, a strong breeze swept through the courtyard, carrying with it the persistent odour from her mouth. The joyous expressions on the faces of the crowd quickly turned to discomfort. Murmurs spread, and within moments people began to cover their noses and step back. Panic and confusion took hold as the crowd dispersed, leaving Ngozi standing alone on the stage. Tears welled up in her eyes as she watched the people flee. The joy she had felt moments ago was replaced by a deep sorrow and embarrassment. She turned to retreat back into the safety of the palace, but before she could, Chidi stepped forward, his face full of compassion. "Princess Ngozi," he said softly, "your voice has touched many hearts tonight. Do not let this moment overshadow the beauty you have shared." Though still shaken, Ngozi nodded, grateful for Chidi's kindness. The two returned to the palace, where her parents awaited her with open arms. After that fateful evening, Princess Ngozi withdrew, her heart heavy with disappointment. She refused to show her face or sing, feeling the sting of rejection too deeply. The palace, once filled with the echoes of her enchanting voice, now stood silent. The people of Umudike, though they missed her songs, understood the princess's plight and respected her decision, but the kingdom felt the void her absence left. As Chidi continued to visit Ngozi, serving as her source of encouragement and support, their bond deepened, and they found themselves developing romantic feelings for each other. They spent hours together, sharing stories, dreams, and laughter, until their friendship blossomed into something more. Gradually, they began to speak of marriage, envisioning a future filled with love and happiness. Just as their dreams seemed within reach, Chidi made a life-altering decision. He couldn't bear to see Ngozi suffer a persistent mouth odor that had plagued her for years. Chidi, the traveling minstrel who had been so moved by Ngozi's voice and courage, could not forget the sorrow in her eyes. Determined to help, he embarked on a journey to find a cure for her persistent mouth odor. He traveled far and wide, seeking wisdom from healers, herbalists, and scholars across distant lands. In the bustling markets of Anwa, he met an elderly herbalist named Mama Ife. Known for her vast knowledge of rare herbs and remedies, Mama Ife listened intently to Chidi's tale. After a thoughtful pause, she nodded. "There is an ancient remedy," she said, "a rare flower called the moon blossom, which only blooms under the full moon's light in the sacred forest of Obiala. Its nectar is said to possess powerful healing properties. However, obtaining it is no simple task." Chidi, undeterred by the challenge, set off towards the sacred forest. The journey was arduous, filled with treacherous paths and wild creatures, but his resolve never wavered. On the night of the full moon, he finally arrived at the heart of the forest. There, bathed in ethereal light, were the moon blossoms, their petals shimmering like silver. Carefully, Chidi collected the precious nectar and made his way back to Umudike. Upon his return, he went straight to the palace and requested an audience with King Obina and Queen Amara. They listened with hope as Chidi explained his journey and the potential cure he had brought. "Ngozi," Chidi called softly, "I have found something that may help you. Please, let us try." Though hesitant, Ngozi agreed, her eyes reflecting a glimmer of hope. With Mama Ife's guidance, they prepared the nectar, and Ngozi drank it as instructed. The effect was not immediate, but within days, a remarkable change began to take place. The once persistent odor gradually faded, replaced by a fresh and pleasant fragrance. When the transformation was complete, Ngozi could hardly believe it. She stood before her mirror, feeling a sense of liberation she had never known. Encouraged by her family and Chidi, she decided to step outside once more. After Ngozi regained her confidence and her place in the hearts of the people of Umudike, her life changed dramatically. The news of her recovery and the beauty of her voice spread far and wide. Princes and noblemen from neighboring kingdoms came to seek her hand in marriage, each hoping to win the favor of the enchanting princess. They brought lavish gifts, grand promises, and spoke of a future filled with wealth and power. Caught up in the whirlwind of attention and adoration, Ngozi found herself enjoying the admiration and the luxuries that came with it. The palace was filled with music, laughter, and the constant arrival of suitors bearing gifts. For a time, Ngozi reveled in this new chapter of her life, her past hardships fading into a distant memory. Chidi, the humble minstrel who had once journeyed far and wide to find a cure for her, was all but forgotten. Despite his unwavering support and the deep bond they had shared, Ngozi now saw him as a mere commoner, unworthy of her attention amid the glittering array of princes and noblemen. Chidi, heartbroken but too proud to beg for her attention, quietly withdrew, returning to his simple life, watching from the shadows as Ngozi basked in her new world of luxury. As the days turned into weeks and weeks into months, Ngozi became more engrossed in the splendor that surrounded her. She enjoyed the lavish gifts and the flattery, hardly noticing that she was neglecting her health and the daily regimen that had once kept her odour at bay. Slowly but surely, the condition began to return, this time with a vengeance. One evening, during a grand banquet held in her honor, Ngozi was surrounded by suitors vying for her attention. As she laughed and conversed, a familiar and dreaded sensation began to creep back. A strong breeze blew through the banquet hall, carrying with it the unmistakable odour that had once isolated her. The faces around her quickly changed from admiration to discomfort. The suitors, unable to hide their revulsion, began to withdraw. The once vibrant hall fell silent as guests started to murmur and excuse themselves. Ngozi, realizing what was happening, felt a wave of panic and embarrassment wash over her. She fled the hall, tears streaming down her face, and locked herself in her room. In her solitude, she reflected on the choices she had made. The attention, the gifts, the flattery, all of it seemed hollow now. She thought of Chidi, the only person who had stood by her through her darkest times, the one who had journeyed far and wide to find a cure for her condition. She remembered his kindness, his dedication, and the genuine affection he had shown her. Guilt and regret filled her heart as she realized how foolish and shallow she had been. Determined to make amends, Ngozi set out to find Chidi. She searched the palace and the surrounding town, asking everyone she met if they had seen the minstrel who had once brought so much hope to her life. Eventually, she found him playing his lute under an old oak tree, his music as soulful and heartfelt as she remembered. "Chidi," she called softly, her voice filled with regret. "I've been looking for you. I need your help." Chidi stood up and regarded her with a mixture of pity and resolve. "Princess Ngozi," he began, his tone gentle but firm. "I'm sorry for what you're going through, but I can't help you this time." Ngozi's eyes widened with surprise and desperation. "Why not, Chidi? You were the only one who ever cared enough to find a cure for me. Please, I need you." Chidi sighed and looked away for a moment before meeting her gaze again. "Ngozi, things have changed. I'm married now to the princess of the neighboring village. I have responsibilities and a life there. I can't leave everything behind to help you again." The words hit Ngozi like a blow. She felt a sharp pain in her chest, realizing the depth of her mistakes. She had taken Chidi's loyalty and affection for granted, and now it was too late. "I understand," she said quietly, tears welling up in her eyes. "I'm so sorry, Chidi. I was foolish and selfish. I let myself get swept away by all the attention and forgot about the one person who truly cared for me." Chidi nodded, his expression softening slightly. "We all make mistakes, Ngozi, but it's important to learn from them. I hope you find a way to heal and find happiness." After the heartbreaking encounter with Chidi, Ngozi returned to the palace, determined to take control of her situation. She decided she would seek out the moon blossom herself, even if it meant waiting for the next full moon. This journey would be a testament to her resolve and the lessons she had learned about humility, loyalty, and never taking anyone for granted. Weeks turned into months as Ngozi prepared for her quest. She studied maps, consulted with herbalists, and gathered supplies. The elders of Umudike, seeing her dedication, offered their guidance and blessings. When the night of the full moon finally arrived, Ngozi set out with a small group of trusted palace guards to find the elusive moon blossom. The journey was arduous. They traveled through dense forests, climbed steep hills, and crossed treacherous rivers. Ngozi's determination never wavered, her heart filled with the hope of finding the blossom and overcoming her affliction once and for all. After several days, they reached the sacred forest of Obiala, where the moon blossom was said to bloom. Under the pale, Anbota and her companions searched tirelessly. They scoured the forest floor, peered into hidden groves, and climbed trees to get a better view, but the blossom was nowhere to be found. As the hours passed, a deep sense of despair began to settle over the group. Ngozi, however, remained steadfast. She remembered Chidi's words about the strength within herself and refused to give up hope. Yet, as dawn approached, it became clear that the moon blossom was not to be found that night. Determined to take action, Ngozi sought counsel from Mama Ife, the wise herbalist who had once guided Chidi. With a heavy heart, Mama Ife confirmed the rarity of the moon blossom and the challenge of obtaining it. Mama Ife said, though the moon blossom may be rare, its healing properties are said to be mirrored in the essence of the rare night lily, which blooms once in every 10 years, meaning Ngozi would have to wait for another 9 years to get another one if she's lucky. Thank you for watching my stories. To my returning subscribers, thanks a lot, I really appreciate. If you're new on this channel, welcome to the family. On this channel we tell beautiful African tales. So always grab your popcorn when you get a notification from us. Also, please don't forget to like, leave a comment on how you feel about the characters in each stories, share to loved ones, as it helps the channel to grow. Until then, we will meet again in our next story. Bye for now.